Alright, so we are on page 43, the chapter called For the People. So the last chapter, the kids, they had to eat on the floor on this tablecloth, and they were kind of amazed because their mama was able to use, or Cecile, I shouldn't call her their mama, Cecile was able to use chopsticks. And then somebody came to the house and knocked on the door, about 3 people, but Cecile sent the girls to the back room. Alright, page 43, For the People. We were trained spies back in Brooklyn, scrunched together, pressing our ears to the door, wall, or air. We used hand signals and mouthed words instead of whispered. If necessary, I could shush my sisters with a glare to bottle up their loose giggling. You can't giggle and be a spy. It was by pressing our ears to the air that we had heard Pa say, "No, Ma. They need to know her, and she needs to know them. They're flying to Oakland. That's final." It had been all we could do not to let on when Pa set us down the next morning. The knock on the door, Cecile ordering us to hide in our room, and her clearing away all the evidence of us were not actions of a mother. These were actions of a secret agent or a fugitive from justice. Someone who doesn't open her door wide and welcoming like Big Ma does when the doorbell rings. Hers were the actions of someone who wears hats, scarves, and shades to keep from being recognized. Kind of like the guy in the phone booth. Someone obviously hiding out. Once again we fell into our spying positions, angling ourselves to the cracked door to see, while pressing our ears against the air. From there we could see pieces of the 3 figures who entered Cecile's house. All wore dark colors. One had on a black jacket and a black beret. The other 2 black t-shirts and black berets over afros. We steadied our heavy, excited breathing to hear what we could. It wasn't long after greeting one another that their talking turned to arguing. It was their voices, all 3 of them, against hers. It sounded like, "Seize the time, for the people, the time is now," versus her, me, my, no, no. Then each one of them firing off, "The people, the people, the people," against her, "My art, my work, my time, my materials, my printing press, me, my, no, no." I was sure they were Black Panthers. They were on the news a lot lately. The Panthers on TV said they were in communities to protect poor black people from the powerful, to provide things like food, clothing, and medical help, and to fight racism. Even so, most people were afraid of Black Panthers because they carried rifles and shouted, "Black Power!" From what I could see, these 3 didn't have rifles, and Cecile didn't seem afraid. Just annoyed because they wanted her things, but she didn't want to give them. Big Ma said God could not have made a being more selfish than Cecile. At least she was like that with everyone, not us. So I'm going to stop there for a minute. The Black Panthers were a group of people in around the 60s, 1960s, when things were so bad in our country, when whites and blacks were separated a lot. And the Black Panthers were a group of people who were trying to make things equal, but they weren't necessarily always trying it in a nice way. There were some people, like Martin Luther King Jr., who tried to make things equal, and he made sure that he did it in a non-violent way. And so the Black Panthers didn't always agree with Martin Luther King Jr., and that's why sometimes people were scared of them, because they carry around guns, like it said, and sometimes we're ready to fight and to get people to understand what they thought. Alright, so back on page 45. Cecile said, "Paper isn't free. Ink isn't free. My printing press isn't free. I'm not free." One of them answered, "None of us is free, Sister Enzilla. Eldridge Cleaver isn't free. Huey Newton isn't free. H. Rap Brown isn't free. Muhammad Ali isn't free." I knew he meant her, Cecile, when he said Enzilla. I didn't know some of those other names, only Huey Newton, the Black Panther leader, and Muhammad Ali, who used to be Cassius Clay. I guess the others were Black Panthers or black people who were in prison. I knew Ali had refused to go to Vietnam and fight like Uncle Darnell was doing. I didn't get what any of that had to do with Cecile. Another one said, "That's why everyone must contribute to the cause." The third voice added, "Like Huey said, we should all carry the weight, and those who have extreme abilities will have to carry extremely heavy loads." There were words thrown back and forth, long unfamiliar words ending in shun, ism, and actic, with more talk about the people thrown in for good measure, like Big Ma throwing a pinch of salt into the cake batter. They weren't just talking. The 3 Black Panthers were rapping, laying it down, telling it like it is, like talking was their weapon. Their words versus her words, hers falling, theirs rising. When her voice fell as low as she would allow it, she stamped her foot and said, all right, but you gotta take my kids." And shortly after they were gone. We retreated from the door and jumped on the top daybed. This was the next part after the spy missions, pulling together what we'd learned. Vanetta said, "Is she giving us away?" Then Fern, "To those people?" I shook my head no. She couldn't explain that to Papa. "Or to Big Ma," Fern said. "And who were those people?" Vanetta asked, in the black clothes, telling her to carry the weight. Talking on and on and on," Fern said. "They're Black Panthers. They're probably who she's running from." Vanetta said, "Who are the Black Panthers?" "You know, like Frida's brother." I made the Black Power sign with my fist. Only Big Ma and I watch the news. Big Ma enjoys hearing about all the trouble going on in the world. It isn't that she actually likes it, she just needs to hear about everything and talk about it. Since Pa works all day and is tired at night, Big Ma gives me her opinions while I wash the dishes. You name it. President LBJ, Ho Chi Minh in North Vietnam, Martin Luther King's funeral, Bobby Kennedy's funeral, the race riots, the sit-ins, Elizabeth Taylor's next husband, the Black Panthers. Each holds Big Ma's interest. "It has something to do with Cecile's paper," I said, "and her ink," Vanetta said, "and the people." We couldn't imagine what tied all 3 things together. Then Vanetta suggested, "Maybe they want her to write a poem." "About the people," Fern said. "Using her special ink and papers," Vanetta said. Pa had told us Cecile wrote poems, but I'd already known that. Flashes of Cecile chanting words and tapping a rhythm with her pencil, then writing. And Uncle Darnell had said I was always there, quiet in the kitchen while she chanted, tapped, and wrote. I'd get those flashing pictures, but in pieces. Vanetta asked, "Can they make you write poems?" Then Vanetta fixed her voice deep like a man's. "You better write a poem about the people or else." Fern and I laughed at her. She loved entertaining us. "They don't send the Black Panthers to your house to make you write a poem," I said. Vanetta's eyes lit up fox bright. She had an idea. "Cecile prints up her own money. How else do you think she got this house? Cecile is printing her own money in the kitchen. That's why we can't go in there, and that's why she didn't cook fried chicken. Or Nana pudding." I shook my head. "With all the money she'd have to print to buy this house, the FBI would have tracked her down and thrown her in the pokey." "The pokey!" That made Fern laugh. Then Vanetta and Fern started dancing and singing. "You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about.